The weight. That's what defined my life with Alara. A crushing, suffocating weight of responsibility, expectation, and disappointment. My name is Ethan, and at 27, I felt like I'd already lived a lifetime. Alara, my wife, was 28. We were supposed to be building a life together, but all I felt like I was building was a prison for myself. It started with promises, with dreams. We met in college. I was driven, obsessed with acing every test, hungry for success. She was different, artistic, free-spirited. She dropped out, saying the rigid structure wasn't for her. I figured she'd find her own path. A baker, a designer, something that sparked that fire in her eyes. Instead, it was gaming. Twitch. YouTube. Alara insisted she'd become a star. I supported her, truly. I bought the expensive equipment, the fancy microphone, the multi-monitor setup, but the effort, it wasn't there. Casual streams, inconsistent uploads, zero marketing. She spent more time complaining about lag than strategizing content. "You're the smart one, Ethan," she'd say, her voice dripping with a saccharine sweetness that now made my stomach churn. "You have the degree. You're the one who's supposed to provide." And so I did. One job became 2, then 3. Sleepless nights blurred into exhausting days. I was a programmer, a freelance writer, a goddamn delivery driver. I was bleeding myself dry, all for Alara's dream, her delusion. The pressure built like a dam ready to burst. I tried talking to her. "Alara, I'm burning out. I can't do this alone." Her response? A torrent of accusations. I was stifling her creativity. I didn't believe in her. I was jealous of her potential success. She'd even throw in the promise of, "Once I am successful, I will support you," as though success was preordained. Silence became our refuge. Arguments were exhausting, so I just stopped talking. I cooked, I cleaned, I did her laundry. I was a servant, not a husband. And the sex. God, the sex. She wanted it every night. I was too drained to even think about it. Every refusal became another battleground. "You don't love me anymore," she'd sob, tears streaming down her face. I did love her. Or, at least, I loved the memory of who she used to be. But the woman in front of me, the one demanding everything and giving nothing, I barely recognized her. I told myself I was overreacting, that I was just stressed. But the truth was a slow, creeping poison, poisoning my soul. I was trapped, suffocating under the weight of Alara's expectations, her laziness, her selfishness. I needed an escape, and that escape I was about to receive. The day I found them, it was a Tuesday. I remember the date, the time, the crushing weight of the air in the room. I had managed to negotiate with my boss to get an early shift, and I was excited to spend the rest of the day with Alara. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could salvage something. I walked in quietly, wanting to surprise her. The bedroom door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open, a smile already forming on my lips. The smile died. Alara, in our bed, with my brother Leo. The world tilted. My breath caught in my throat. It was a scene ripped straight from a nightmare, a twisted mockery of everything I held sacred. Leo, my younger brother, the golden child. He was always the center of attention. My parents coddled him. He'd always been handsome, charismatic, and he knew how to use it. He had tried to flirt with Alara before we got married. I told my parents, but they brushed it off, said I was being paranoid, that I needed to trust them more. Trust him more? The shock gave way to a white-hot rage. I wanted to scream, to tear them apart. But I was frozen, paralyzed by disbelief and a pain so intense it felt like my heart was being ripped from my chest. They didn't even seem ashamed. Leo smirked, that familiar, condescending smirk that had always made my blood boil. "Should have been paying attention to her, Ethan," he said, his voice dripping with smug satisfaction. Alara nodded, her eyes hard. devoid of any remorse. You were never here for me. Leo was. The words were like daggers, twisting in the wound. I was the one working my ass off, sacrificing everything. And they were twisting it around, making me the villain. You think this is my fault? I managed to choke out, my voice trembling with rage. It is, Alara spat. You abandoned me. Abandoned her? I was keeping us afloat. The injustice of it all was overwhelming. Even now, the only thing she was concerned about was herself. I stumbled back, feeling like I was going to be sick. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The room spun, the faces of Alara and Leo blurring into a grotesque mockery of love and loyalty. I turned and ran. I didn't know where I was going, just that I had to get away. Away from the betrayal, away from the lies, away from the suffocating weight of it all. That day, I decided to teach her what it felt like to be left out. The drive was a blur of rage and disbelief. I ended up at a cheap motel, the kind where you don't ask questions. I needed space, a place to think without seeing their faces etched into my mind. My first instinct was to confront them, to scream, to demand answers. But I knew that wouldn't accomplish anything. They were already convinced they were right. I needed something else. Something petty? Something that would hurt them where it counted. Alara's accounts, her precious Twitch and YouTube channels. They were her identity, her validation, and I had the keys. Back home, I waited until I knew they were out. My hands were shaking as I logged into her computer. Every password, every recovery email, every connected account, I changed them all. It took hours, meticulously erasing her digital footprint. It was childish, I knew, but it felt good. A small measure of control in a situation where I felt completely powerless. I wanted to scream and shout, but instead I chose to fight fire with fire. As I was getting ready to leave, I remembered that I was the one who prepared her meals every day, and I made a decision. I would stop doing it. Maybe she will realize how much she depends on me. When Alara came home, she didn't notice anything at first. She was too busy basking in the afterglow of her conquest. But the next day, when she tried to stream, the realization dawned on her. She couldn't log in. She couldn't access her accounts. Her world, her little online kingdom, had been snatched away. The fury in her eyes when she confronted me was terrifying. "What did you do?" she shrieked, her face contorted with rage. I simply shrugged, trying to appear indifferent. "I don't know what you're talking about." She knew I was lying, and it drove her insane. "You can't do this to me," she screamed. "Those are my accounts." "Were your accounts?" I corrected, a cold satisfaction creeping into my voice. "Now they're mine." The next few days were hell. Constant arguments, accusations, threats. She even got Leo involved, but I refused to budge. I was done being the pushover. My parents called, predictably siding with Alara and Leo. I was being unreasonable, they said. I should forgive them. Move on. Families fight, they said. You can't let this ruin everything. But I was tired of fighting, tired of forgiving, tired of being the one who always gave in. I was done. I packed a bag and left. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay there any longer. I needed to escape the toxic web of betrayal and manipulation. The only question was, where would I run to? I spent the next few weeks bouncing between cheap motels and friends' couches. I was a ghost, adrift in a sea of uncertainty. The only thing I knew for sure was that I couldn't go back. I spoke to a lawyer. Divorce was the only option. I had to cut Alara out of my life completely. The legal process was a nightmare, filled with accusations and counter-accusations. Alara tried to paint me as an abusive husband, claiming I was controlling and manipulative. Leo testified against me, twisting the truth to protect his own image. But I had the evidence on my side. The financial records, the witness testimonies from friends who saw how hard I worked, how little support Alara offered. The truth, however twisted, eventually came out. The divorce papers were a bittersweet victory. I was free, but at what cost? I had lost my wife, my brother, my family. My life was in ruins. Alara refused to sign the papers at first, clinging to the hope that I would change my mind. She even tried to seduce me, promising to be a better wife, to support my dreams. The words were empty, hollow. I didn't believe her for a second. Then, Leo got involved. He wanted Alara out of the picture so he could move on with his life. He convinced her to sign the papers, promising her a better future, a new career. I didn't care. I just wanted it to be over. The day the divorce was finalized, I felt a strange sense of relief. The weight had finally lifted. But there was also a deep, gnawing emptiness. I was alone. I decided I needed a change. A fresh start. I started looking for jobs outside the city. I needed to get away from the memories, the pain, the constant reminders of what I had lost. I found a promising position at a tech startup in San Francisco. It was a long shot, but I applied anyway. A few weeks later, I got the call. They wanted me. It was a sign, an opportunity to rebuild my life, to start over. I packed my bags, said goodbye to the few friends I had left, and drove west. San Francisco was a revelation. The energy, the innovation, the sense of possibility, it was intoxicating. I found a small apartment overlooking the bay, a sanctuary where I could escape the ghosts of my past. The job was challenging but rewarding. I was surrounded by talented, driven people who shared my passion for technology. For the first time in years, I felt like I was finally living my potential. I worked hard, throwing myself into my career. The long hours were a welcome distraction from the pain and loneliness. I started going to therapy, trying to unpack the trauma of my marriage and betrayal. My therapist helped me understand why I had stayed so long, why I had accepted such treatment. I realized that I had internalized the belief that I had to be the responsible one, the one who could handle everything. It was a pattern that had been ingrained in me since childhood. I started to heal. Slowly, painfully, I began to rebuild my life. I made new friends, explored the city, rediscovered my passions. I started to feel like myself again. Then, a surprise. I received a letter from Alara. She wanted to apologize. She said she finally understood what she had put me through, now that she was working as a cashier at a local grocery store. She admitted that her streaming dreams had been unrealistic, that she had taken me for granted. I didn't respond. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to forgive her, to find some closure, but another part of me was terrified of reopening old wounds. A few weeks later, I received a call from my father. He had been diagnosed with a serious illness. He wanted to apologize too. He admitted that they had been wrong to enable Alara and Leo, that they had failed me as parents. I was stunned. It was the first time I had ever heard my father admit he was wrong. I flew back home to see him. The meeting was awkward but cathartic. We talked for hours, hashing out old grievances, forgiving past mistakes. My mother was still in denial, convinced that everything would have been fine if I had just been more understanding. I accepted that she might never change. I had to let go of the need for her approval. Life was moving on. I was moving on. 1 year after moving to San Francisco, I was a different person. I was stronger, more confident, more self-aware. I had survived the storm and emerged on the other side. Then, another twist. I discovered that Alara had never managed to recover her YouTube channel. I decided to rebrand it, using it to share my insights on game development and technology. To my surprise, it took off. The channel grew to 50,000 subscribers in a matter of months. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was succeeding in the very field where Alara had failed. It was a sweet, unexpected form of revenge. I started dating again. I met someone at a game developers conference, a smart, ambitious woman who shared my values. We took things slow, building a relationship based on mutual respect and understanding. One day, I received a message from Leo. He needed money. He claimed that he was entitled to my success, that I owed him for the sacrifices he had made. I blocked his number. I was done with the drama, the manipulation, the toxicity. I had finally learned to protect myself. My new apartment overlooked the bay. I sat on my balcony, sipping a glass of wine, reflecting on how far I had come. I had lost everything, but I had also gained something far more valuable: myself. Life had come full circle. I was finally free, free from the weight of the past, free to build a future on my own terms. And somewhere out there, I had a feeling that a few certain people were wishing they hadn't pushed me so hard. Sometimes, revenge is a dish best served successful. The YouTube channel continued to explode. My insights on game design resonated with aspiring developers, and the behind-the-scenes glimpses into my work were a hit. I even started sharing my personal story, talking openly about the challenges I had overcome. The response was overwhelming. People connected with my vulnerability, my honesty, my resilience. It wasn't just about success anymore. It was about inspiring others, about showing them that it was possible to rebuild after trauma. It was about taking something negative and turning it into something positive. The channel reached 100,000 subscribers, then 200. I was invited to speak at conferences, to share my story with wider audiences. I was becoming a voice for the underdog, the survivor, the person who refused to give up. Then came the big break. A small venture capital firm reached out. Impressed by my work and my vision, they offered to fund my own game development studio. It was a dream come true. I jumped at the opportunity. I found a small office space, hired a team of talented developers, and started working on my first game. It was a passion project, a reflection of my own experiences. The game was about escaping a toxic relationship and building a successful life. It was called 3 Jobs Later. The development process was challenging, but exhilarating. We poured our hearts and souls into the game, determined to create something meaningful and impactful. We worked long hours, fueled by passion and a shared sense of purpose. The game was nearing completion when I received a disturbing email. It was from a lawyer representing Alara. She claimed that she deserved credit for the game, arguing that her streaming career had inspired it. I laughed. The audacity was breathtaking. My legal team quickly shut down the claim, presenting documented evidence of Alara's lack of contribution to my life and my work. Screenshots of her barely existent Twitch channel, her abandoned YouTube account, her overall contribution to my life and well-being. It was a slam dunk case. The irony was delicious. She was trying to profit from my success, after years of refusing to contribute to my life. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Word of the game spread like wildfire. Gaming blogs, YouTube channels, and even mainstream media outlets were buzzing about 3 Jobs Later. The anticipation was palpable. We released a trailer, showcasing the game's unique gameplay and its powerful message. It went viral. Then, another call from my father. He was beaming with pride. He had become one of our game's biggest promoters, telling everyone he knew about his son's success. It was a far cry from the dismissive, critical parent I had known for so long. My mother, however, was still struggling to accept the new reality. She couldn't understand why I was so successful. While Alara was working as a cashier, she accused me of being vindictive, of rubbing Alara's failure in her face. I tried to explain that it wasn't about revenge. It was about creating something meaningful, about sharing my story, about inspiring others. But she couldn't understand. She was still trapped in her own narrative, unable to see beyond her own biases. I realized that I couldn't change her. I had to accept her for who she was, and let go of the need for her approval. It was a painful realization, but a necessary one. The day 3 Jobs Later was released, I was a nervous wreck. I had poured everything into this game, and I was terrified of how it would be received. The reviews started pouring in. They were overwhelmingly positive. Critics praised the game's innovative gameplay, its compelling story, and its powerful message. Players connected with the characters, the themes, and the overall experience. The game sold 100,000 copies in the first week, then 200,000. It was a runaway success. I was interviewed on podcasts, television shows, and even a major news network. I was becoming a public figure, a symbol of resilience and triumph. Of course, the success didn't come without its challenges. Alara and Leo's divorce was even messier than expected. Leo tried to claim a share of my game studio's success, arguing that I had learned everything I knew about gaming from him. The judge laughed him out of court. Alara, meanwhile, was spiraling. She lashed out at me on social media, accusing me of stealing her ideas, of ruining her life. I ignored her. I had moved on. Then came the ultimate humiliation. Leo decided to start his own game development studio. He launched a Kickstarter campaign, promising to create the next big gaming sensation. The campaign raised a grand total of $47, the same number as Alara's peak Twitch followers. I couldn't help but laugh. The universe had a strange sense of humor. My relationship with Sarah, the game developer I had met at the conference, continued to blossom. We were equal partners, supporting each other's dreams and ambitions. We collaborated on game projects in our free time, creating innovative and exciting new experiences. We got engaged. The wedding was gaming-themed, a celebration of our shared passion and our unlikely love story. It was a joyous occasion filled with laughter, love, and a sense of gratitude for all that we had overcome. 1 year after the release of 3 Jobs Later, I was a different person. I was a successful entrepreneur, a respected game developer, a loving partner, and a confident, self-assured individual. But I knew that my journey wasn't over. I wanted to give back, to help others who were struggling to escape toxic relationships and rebuild their lives. I launched a foundation dedicated to providing resources and support to survivors of abuse. We offered career training, financial assistance, and mental health services. Our goal was to empower people to take control of their lives and create a better future. The foundation quickly gained momentum. We partnered with local organizations, raised funds through charitable events, and recruited volunteers from all walks of life. We were making a real difference in people's lives. One day, I received a message from a young woman who had been helped by our foundation. She had escaped an abusive relationship, found a job in the tech industry, and was now thriving. Her story was a testament to the power of resilience, the transformative power of hope. That's when I knew I had finally found my purpose. I had turned my pain into power, my struggles into strength. I had created a life that was not only successful but also meaningful. I looked out at the San Francisco skyline, the city lights twinkling in the distance. I thought about Alara, about Leo, about my parents. I had forgiven them, but I had also moved on. I had created a new life, a new family, a new identity. The weight was gone. I was finally free. And in its place was a lightness, a joy, a sense of profound gratitude for all that I had learned, all that I had overcome, and all that was yet to come. I had not only survived, I had thrived, and it was something I planned to continue doing until my dying breath. Years passed. The game development studio thrived. We released several more successful games, each exploring themes of resilience, empowerment, and the importance of human connection. We made it our mission to not just entertain, but to inspire, to uplift, to make a positive impact on the world. The foundation continued to grow, expanding its reach and its impact. We established partnerships with universities and vocational schools, offering scholarships and mentorship programs to survivors of abuse. We created a safe space for people to share their stories, to find support, and to heal. Sarah and I got married in a small, intimate ceremony, surrounded by our closest friends and family. It was a day filled with love, laughter, and a deep sense of gratitude for the journey we had taken together. My relationship with my father continued to improve. He became a regular visitor to San Francisco, eager to learn about my work and to spend time with Sarah and me. He finally seemed to understand the pain he had caused, and he was making a sincere effort to make amends. My mother, however, remained distant. She was still consumed by her own regrets and unable to fully embrace the new reality. I accepted that she might never change, and I learned to find peace in that acceptance. One day, I received an unexpected email. It was from a documentary filmmaker who wanted to tell my story. She had been deeply moved by the success of 3 Jobs Later and the impact of the foundation. She believed that my experiences could inspire others to overcome adversity and find their own path to success. I hesitated. I had shared my story publicly before, but the idea of having my life documented in a film felt like a different level of exposure. But after careful consideration, I decided to go for it. I believed that the film could reach a wider audience and have an even greater impact than the game or the foundation. The filming process was intense, but also cathartic. I spent hours talking to the filmmaker, revisiting painful memories, and reflecting on the lessons I had learned. Sarah was incredibly supportive, offering encouragement and perspective whenever I needed it. The film premiered at a prestigious film festival. The response was overwhelming. Critics praised the film's honesty, its vulnerability, and its message of hope. The audience was deeply moved, sharing their own stories of resilience and triumph. The film won several awards and was eventually picked up by a major streaming service. It reached millions of viewers around the world, generating a wave of positive attention and inspiring countless individuals to take control of their lives. The film also had an unexpected impact on Alara and Leo. They were both interviewed for the film, and their responses were revealing. Alara expressed remorse for her actions, admitting that she had made a mistake and that she regretted the pain she had caused. Leo, on the other hand, remained unrepentant, blaming me for his failures and refusing to take responsibility for his own choices. The film exposed their true characters for all the world to see. The public's reaction was swift and unforgiving. Alara was subjected to online harassment and ridicule, while Leo's reputation was tarnished beyond repair. I didn't take any pleasure in their suffering. I had moved on, but I couldn't deny that there was a certain satisfaction in seeing them face the consequences of their actions. Years later, I found myself sitting on my balcony overlooking the bay, sipping a glass of wine. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the city. Sarah was inside, working on a new game project. I thought about the journey I had taken, the challenges I had overcome, the person I had become. I had lost everything, but I had gained something far more valuable, myself. I had learned that resilience wasn't about avoiding pain, but about embracing it, about learning from it, about using it to fuel your growth. I had learned that success wasn't about money or fame, but about making a positive impact on the world, about inspiring others to live their best lives. I had learned that forgiveness was a gift you gave yourself, not the person who had wronged you. I had learned that love was about mutual respect, understanding, and support. I had built a life that was not only successful, but also meaningful. I was surrounded by people I loved, doing work that I was passionate about, and making a difference in the world. I had finally found peace. Then my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. I hesitated before answering. "Hello," I said cautiously. "Ethan?" A voice on the other end said. It was a voice I hadn't heard in years. A voice that sent a chill down my spine. "Yes, this is Ethan. It's Tina." The world seemed to shrink. The San Francisco sunset, once a symbol of my hard-won peace, now felt like a mocking spotlight. Tina. After all this time, what could she possibly want? "Tina," I managed, my voice tight. "What do you want?" There was a long pause, a silence thick with unspoken history. I need your help." My gut clenched. Of course she did. She'd always needed something from me. Help with what, Tina? I'm a little busy running a company and a foundation, so you'll have to be specific. I tried to keep the bitterness out of my voice, but it was a losing battle. It's Leo, she said, her voice cracking. He's in trouble. Leo, in trouble. That was hardly news. He'd been in trouble his entire life. What kind of trouble? I asked, my voice flat. He got mixed up with the wrong people. Gambling debts? He owes a lot of money, gambling debts. Figures. Leo never could resist a shortcut, a way to get rich quick. It had always been his downfall. And apparently, it still was. And why are you telling me this, Tina? Why would I care? Because he said you're the only one who can help him. He said you're successful now, that you have money. I scoffed. He thought that when he tried to sue me for my gaming studio success, you'll have to excuse me if I don't think fondly of your former partner in crime. I pressed the phone tighter against my ear, battling the urge to hang up. Does he really think I'm just going to hand him money after everything he did? I know, Tina said, her voice pleading. I know you have every reason to hate him. And me. But please, Ethan, he's my brother. I can't just let him rot. Her brother. Always her brother. Never me. And what about everything I lost, Tina? Did you ever stop to think about that? You destroyed my life. My marriage. My family. I know, she sobbed. I'm so sorry, Ethan. I was young and stupid and I made a terrible mistake. I've been paying for it ever since. Please, just hear me out. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. I knew I shouldn't get involved. It was a trap. But something in her voice, a desperate plea for help, tugged at my conscience. The old Ethan, the one who always felt responsible for everyone else's problems, was stirring within me. Fine, I said, my voice weary. Tell me everything, Tina explained the situation. Leo had racked up a significant gambling debt with a dangerous group of people. They were threatening him, his family, even Tina herself. He was desperate, terrified, and completely out of options. He said you know people, Tina continued, that you have connections, that you can negotiate with them. It was true. I had built a network of contacts over the years, people who owed me favors. I could probably pull some strings, make some calls. But getting involved with dangerous criminals was a risky proposition. It could put me, Sarah, and my entire operation in jeopardy. I don't know, Tina, I said, my voice hesitant. This is a big ask, and it could have serious consequences. I know, she said. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't a matter of life or death. Please, Ethan, I'm begging you. Just help me save my brother. I thought about it for a long time. I weighed the risks, the potential rewards, the moral implications. Was I willing to put myself in harm's way to help the man who had betrayed me? Ultimately, I made a decision. I couldn't let Leo die. Not because I cared about him, but because I couldn't live with the guilt of knowing I could have done something and didn't. Okay, Tina, I said, my voice resolute. I'll help you. But you have to do exactly what I say. No questions asked, and you have to promise me that you and Leo will stay out of my life after this is over. No more calls, no more emails, no more contact of any kind. Anything, Tina said, her voice filled with relief. I promise. Anything you want. I spent the next few days working the phones, calling in favors, and gathering information. I learned that Leo's debt was substantial, and the people he owed were not to be trifled with. They were ruthless, violent, and completely unpredictable. I arranged a meeting with their representative, a shadowy figure known only as the broker. The meeting was held in a dimly lit warehouse on the outskirts of the city. The air was thick with tension. You want to settle your brother's debt, the broker said, his voice cold and calculating. That will cost you. I know, I said, my voice calm and steady. I'm prepared to pay, but I want guarantees. I want assurances that Leo and his family will be left alone. Guarantees cost extra, the broker said, a sinister smile spreading across his face. The negotiation was tense and protracted. The broker demanded a ridiculous sum of money, far more than Leo's original debt. He knew I was desperate, and he was trying to take advantage of the situation. I countered his offer, arguing that it was unreasonable and that I was willing to walk away. I bluffed. I threatened. I used every trick I had learned over the years to gain the upper hand. Finally, we reached an agreement. I would pay a reduced sum, and the broker would guarantee Leo's safety. But there was a catch. I had to perform a small favor for him. I need you to deliver a package, the broker said, his eyes narrowing. It's a simple task. No questions asked. Just drop it off at the designated location. I hesitated. Delivering a mysterious package to a shadowy figure was a recipe for disaster. But I had no choice. I had promised Tina I would help her brother. Fine, I said, my voice resigned. I'll do it. The broker gave me the package. It was small, nondescript, and surprisingly heavy. He also gave me instructions on where to deliver it and when. As I walked away from the warehouse, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had made a terrible mistake. I had gotten involved in something dangerous, something that could have serious consequences. But I had made a promise, and I was determined to keep it. The package sat on the passenger seat of my car like a ticking time bomb. Every stoplight, every unexpected bump sent a jolt of anxiety through me. I knew I shouldn't have agreed to this. I knew I was playing with fire, but I was too far in to turn back. Sarah noticed my unease the moment I walked through the door. She could always read me like a book. "What's wrong, Ethan?" she asked, her brow furrowed with concern. "Nothing," I lied, trying to sound convincing. "Just a little stressed with work." She didn't believe me for a second. She knew I was holding something back, but she didn't press. She knew I would tell her when I was ready. I spent the rest of the evening trying to act normal, but it was no use. I was distracted, irritable, and completely unable to focus. Sarah tried to engage me in conversation, to distract me from whatever was weighing on my mind, but I couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom. That night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, my mind racing with possibilities. What was in the package? Drugs? Money? Weapons? And what would happen when I delivered it? Would I be arrested? Would I be killed? The questions swirled in my head, fueling my anxiety and keeping me awake. Finally, I gave up trying to sleep and got out of bed. I went to my office and started researching the broker and his organization. What I found was chilling. They were involved in everything from drug trafficking and money laundering to extortion and murder. They were a ruthless, powerful force, and I had just agreed to do them a favor. I knew I had to tell Sarah. She deserved to know the truth. She deserved to be prepared for whatever might happen. I walked back to the bedroom and gently woke her up. "Sarah, I need to tell you something," I said, my voice trembling. I told Sarah everything. About Tina's call, about Leo's gambling debts, about my deal with the broker, and about the package I was supposed to deliver. She listened in silence, her face growing increasingly pale as I spoke. When I finished, she was silent for a long moment, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and disappointment. "Ethan, what were you thinking?" she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You put yourself and me in danger. You got involved with criminals. How could you be so reckless?" I know, I said, my voice pleading. "I messed up. I was trying to help Tina, to save Leo. I thought I could handle it." "You can't handle this, Ethan," she said, her voice rising. "This is beyond your control. You need to go to the police." "I can't go to the police," I said, shaking my head. "The broker would kill Leo and his family. I promised Tina I would protect them." "And what about protecting us, Ethan?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Don't we deserve to be safe?" I knew she was right. I had put her in an impossible situation. I had forced her to choose between loyalty to me and her own safety. "I'm so sorry, Sarah," I said, tears streaming down my face. "I never meant to hurt you. I love you more than anything in the world." She reached out and took my hand, her touch surprisingly gentle. "I love you too, Ethan," she said. "But you need to fix this. You need to find a way out of this mess. And you need to do it now." We spent the rest of the night strategizing, trying to figure out a way to deliver the package without putting ourselves in danger. We considered going to the police, but we knew it was too risky. We considered trying to intercept the package, but we knew we would be no match for the broker's organization. Finally, we came up with a plan. It was risky, audacious, and completely insane, but it was the only chance we had. The next day, I followed the broker's instructions and drove to the designated location. It was an abandoned warehouse on the other side of the city. The area was deserted and the air was thick with tension. I parked my car and waited. A few minutes later, a black SUV pulled up beside me. A man in a dark suit got out and approached my car. "The package," he said, his voice cold and emotionless. I handed him the package. He took it and walked back to the SUV. As he drove away, I took a deep breath and activated my phone. Sarah and I had spent the last few hours working on a little something extra to deliver along with the package: a GPS tracker, a miniaturized camera, and an audio transmitter, all carefully hidden inside. The plan was simple. We would track the SUV to its destination, gather evidence, and then turn everything over to the authorities. It was risky, but it was the only way to expose the broker's organization and bring them to justice. I followed the SUV for several hours, weaving through the city streets and highways. The tracker worked perfectly, providing me with real-time updates on its location. Finally, the SUV pulled into a gated compound on the outskirts of the city. The compound was heavily guarded, with armed men patrolling the perimeter. It was clear that this was the broker's headquarters. I parked my car a safe distance away and started gathering evidence. I took pictures of the compound, the guards, and the vehicles that entered and exited the gate. I recorded audio of the conversations I overheard. I was determined to collect as much information as possible. As I was gathering evidence, I noticed something strange. A black helicopter was landing on the roof of the main building. It was the same helicopter I had seen at the broker's warehouse a few days earlier. I knew something big was about to happen. I called Sarah and told her what I had seen. "It's time to call the authorities," I said, my voice urgent. "Something big is going down and we need to stop it." Sarah contacted the police, the FBI, and even a few contacts she had at the Department of Justice. She laid out the evidence we had gathered and explained the situation. The authorities responded quickly. Within minutes, the compound was surrounded by police cars, SWAT teams, and federal agents. A full-scale raid was underway. I watched from a distance as the police stormed the compound. Gunfire erupted and explosions rocked the air. The fighting was intense, but the police were well-equipped and well-prepared. After several hours of intense fighting, the police finally gained control of the compound. The broker and his organization were taken into custody. They were charged with a long list of crimes, including drug trafficking, money laundering, extortion, and murder. Leo was also arrested. He was charged with conspiracy and accessory to several of the broker's crimes. Tina was devastated. She had hoped that I could save her brother, but instead I had helped send him to prison. I felt a pang of guilt, but I knew I had done the right thing. I had protected myself, my wife, and my community. I had brought justice to a dangerous criminal organization, and I had finally closed the chapter on Leo and Tina. I had paid my debt, and I was free to move on with my life. In the years that followed, I continued to build my game development studio and expand my foundation. I became a vocal advocate for survivors of abuse, using my platform to raise awareness and inspire change. Sarah and I grew closer than ever. We were a team, partners in every sense of the word. We supported each other's dreams, celebrated each other's successes, and comforted each other during difficult times. My relationship with my parents improved. They finally understood the mistakes they had made, and they made a genuine effort to make amends. They became active supporters of my foundation, volunteering their time and donating generously. The documentary about my life became a huge success, winning numerous awards and inspiring millions of people around the world. It was a testament to the power of resilience, the transformative power of hope, and the enduring power of love. I often think about Tina and Leo. I don't know what happened to them. I don't know if they ever found happiness or redemption. But I hope they learned from their mistakes and that they found a way to live a life of purpose and meaning. As for me, I have no regrets. I have made mistakes, I have suffered losses, and I have faced challenges that seemed insurmountable. But I have also learned, grown, and thrived. I have built a life that is not only successful, but also meaningful. I have finally found peace. And that, I realize, is the greatest revenge of all. Years melted into decades. The digital world shifted, evolved, and transformed. But the core principles I built my life on remained constant: resilience, empathy, and the relentless pursuit of a better future. My hair, once a youthful brown, was now streaked with silver, a testament to the battles fought and the victories won. Sarah, ever radiant, remained my anchor, my partner in crime, my guiding star. Our game studio, a testament to our shared vision, continued to churn out innovative and impactful experiences, pushing boundaries and challenging conventions. The foundation, a beacon of hope for countless survivors, flourished, providing support, resources, and a path to a brighter tomorrow. Retirement loomed on the horizon, a gentle invitation to slow down, to savor the fruits of my labor, to reflect on the long and winding road that had brought me to this point. I had handed over the reins of the studio to a new generation of talented developers, individuals who shared my passion and my commitment to creating meaningful experiences. The foundation was in the capable hands of a dedicated team, ensuring its continued success and impact. One crisp autumn evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, I received a notification on my antique, by modern standards, tablet. It was a message from an unknown sender. A jolt of unease shot through me, a familiar echo of the past. "Ethan, it's been a long time. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I felt like I needed to reach out. It's about Leo." The name hit me like a punch to the gut. Leo! After all these years, he still had the power to stir up a maelstrom of emotions within me. Curiosity warred with resentment, forgiveness with a lingering sense of betrayal. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the delete button, but something compelled me to read on. He doesn't have much time left. He's been sick for a while and it's getting worse. He asked for you. He wants to see you before he goes. A wave of conflicting emotions washed over me. Pity, anger, sadness, a strange sense of obligation. Was I obligated to grant his dying wish? Did I owe him closure after all the pain he had caused? Sarah, sensing my turmoil, gently placed a hand on my shoulder. "What's wrong, Ethan?" she asked, her voice soft and concerned. I showed her the message. She read it in silence, her expression thoughtful. When she finished, she looked at me with unwavering honesty. "It's your decision, Ethan," she said. "But if you think it will bring you peace, you should go. Don't let regret be the last thing you feel." Her words resonated deeply within me. Regret had been a constant companion in my life, a shadow lurking in the corners of my mind. I didn't want it to define my final years. I made my decision. The journey back to my hometown was a surreal experience. The familiar landscapes, once etched in my memory with both fondness and pain, seemed alien, distorted by the passage of time. I found Leo in a sterile, antiseptic hospital room, his body ravaged by illness, his once vibrant eyes now dull and sunken. He was a shadow of the man I had known, the golden child who had always been the center of attention. He looked up as I entered the room, a flicker of recognition in his eyes. "Ethan," he whispered, his voice weak and raspy. "You came." "I came," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. We sat in silence for a long moment, the weight of our shared history pressing down on us. The air was thick with unspoken words, with years of resentment, betrayal, and regret. Finally, Leo spoke. "I'm sorry, Ethan," he said, his voice barely audible. "For everything. I was jealous, insecure, and I did terrible things. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I wanted you to know that I regret it." I looked at him, searching for sincerity in his faded eyes. I saw not a glimmer of the arrogance and entitlement that had defined him for so long, only a deep, profound sense of remorse. "I forgive you, Leo," I said, the words flowing freely from my heart. "It's time to let it go." He smiled, a weak, weary smile that reached his eyes. "Thank you, Ethan," he whispered. "That means more than you know." We talked for hours, reminiscing about our childhood, our shared experiences, the moments of joy and connection that had been overshadowed by the darkness of our later years. We talked about our parents, about their flaws and their love, about the complexities of family dynamics. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the room, Leo grew weaker. He closed his eyes, his breathing shallow and labored. "Ethan," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Thank you for giving me peace." He took a final breath and slipped away, his spirit finally free from the confines of his broken body. I sat beside him for a long time, my heart filled with a mixture of sadness and peace. I had forgiven him, and in doing so, I had finally forgiven myself. I had released the weight of the past and embraced the promise of the future. As I walked out of the hospital room, I felt a profound sense of closure. The long and winding road had finally come to an end. I had faced my demons, conquered my fears, and emerged stronger, wiser, and more resilient than ever before. My journey had been filled with pain, betrayal, and loss, but it had also been filled with love, hope, and the unwavering belief in the power of the human spirit to overcome adversity. And as I looked out at the horizon, I knew that the best was yet to come. The game was far from over. It was only just beginning. The final score: Ethan, Infinite, Tina, and Leo, game over. The end.